So UFC Fight Night Strickland versus Magomedov has just wrapped up, and I'm going to be going over the whole card, starting with the early prelim, ending with the main event, giving my reaction and breakdown of every single fight on the card, as well as giving some next fight to makes for the key fighters that fought on this card. Starting off with the prelim opener of Alexander Romanov versus Blagoy Ivanov. I'll be completely honest, I'll just get this out of the way now. I did not actually watch the first two fights. I watched a little bit back of this fight. Alexander Romanov won a pretty clear decision. Got a few takedowns in there, landed good on the feet. And just out techniques Blagoy Ivanov over 3 rounds. Not the most exciting fight, boring 3 round decision, but he gets it done and gets back in the win column, which was good to see from him. And I picked him to win, so I'm happy about that. And then the other fight, which I didn't watch, Ivana Petrovic versus Luana Carolina. Luana Carolina won a decision again. Not too upset about missing out on this. The first two fights both went decision. Not the most entertaining fight from what I've seen. Luana Carolina landed 41 significant strikes. Petrovic landed 23. There was a combined 3 takedowns between them. Petrovic had some submission attempts, but that was about it. Not the most action-packed fight. Luana Carolina won a decision. I didn't pick her to win. I did pick Ivana Petrovic. I believed in the sort of prospect, you could call it, coming up. But as you'll see, with a common theme on this card is the prospects didn't really show out too well. This card did serve as a bit of a kind of fraud checking card, and a lot of hype trains got turned back and stopped. So yeah, Ivana Petrovic lost this fight. But moving on, the first fight I actually did watch, and it was a really good one. Guram Kutateladze versus Elves Brenner. Everyone picked Guram going into this fight. I picked Guram going into this fight, but he lost by third rounds TKO. It was insane to see. Crazy fight. Fight of the night for sure. Guram cut Brenner open badly with an elbow. There was a big gash on his forehead. Brenner's blonde hair dyed red. Um, Started off looking like me, ended up looking like Gillian Robertson with that hair color that he had by the end of the fight. Massive elbow cut him open. He was losing. He lost the first 2 rounds. They were somewhat competitive, but just the visible damage of those elbows and the shots that Guram was landing won him the first 2 rounds. And Guram's technique looked really good in this fight. He is a very good fighter, don't get me wrong. But I picked him in this fight not because I believed in him to be like the next top 10 guy or something, but more so just because I didn't believe in Elves Brenner, because in his last fight against Zubair he won a split decision, which a lot of people thought he lost. Not the most impressive performance, and I just thought Guram was much higher than the level of Zubair, which is correct, he is, but as good as Guram is technically, he's got a real cardio issue, and that showed in this matchup. He landed, landed good on the feet. He landed 85 significant strikes to 65 for Brenner. Brenner had 2 takedowns. Guram was supposed to have this amazing takedown defense. He was taken down a few times, just body locked and tripped out by Elves Brenner. So not a good performance for Guram. And then in the third round, he was really gassing hard, getting tired, not looking good for him. Both of them were landing big shots. Guram was landing these nice, they're slightly illegal, but standing 12 to 6 elbows coming over the top with those with the vertical ones like this. Landing a few good ones of those, landing some big elbows. But what I've noticed from Guram is he's a technique matcher. He just like spams techniques, does techniques, but with no like planning or like game plan or setup for any of them. He just throws out stuff, and he was landing good, and he hurt Brenner a few times in the fight, but he's got a real cardio issue. Might be because of the drastic weight cut. He's so lean at lightweight. Maybe you should try a welterweight move. Maybe see how that goes. But yeah, his cardio really wasn't good in this fight, and it showed because Brenner came on strong in the third round and landed a big shot. That he landed a big shot before, and then Guram was a bit rocked, and then came back towards him, and then he landed a big left hook slightly on the neck or side of the chin, and then Guram just kind of walked away and just folded. Not like a clean knockout, not like a rocked TKO, but he just something was wrong there, and he was hurt, and he couldn't keep going. And Elves Brenner got the TKO win. Very impressive from him. Went from coming off a split decision loss to Zubair to beating the guy that a lot of people were saying is competitive with a lot of the top 10, which I thought was a bit ridiculous to say going into it. Like, you can't you can't praise someone solely just based off losses. Like realistically, he lost to Gamrot in my opinion, and then he lost to Demir as well. Both close fights, but now we've also seen on this card Demir got kind of checked as well, and his grappling's shown to be pretty terrible. Um, so yeah, but Guram lost his fight. Crazy to see. Everyone's parlays failed on the first leg. And regardless of if Guram had won this, your parlays would have failed anyway because there were some big upsets tonight. Um, but moving on though, Yana Santos versus Karol Rosa. Not going to talk about it for too long. Not the most action-packed fight. There was clinching, there was a few takedowns, and there was a few strikes landed on the feet. To give you an idea of how much clinching there was, 151 strikes landed from Yana Santos. Only 95 were significant, and then 117 significant strikes. So 117 total strikes for Karol Rosa, and only 66 were significant. Karol Rosa landed the better shots in the second round. She landed some good knees in the clinch, got a takedown as well. She got the one takedown of the fight. Not too much happened. It was mostly just clinch. And first round you'd give Santos. Second and third you give Rosa. Close fight. I was a bit nervous going into the decision because if I'd gotten this wrong, I would have gone negative on the card. But I did end up going 6-6. So not a good card for me, but not a terrible one either. And with the amount of upsets, I don't think many people did really well on this card. But Carol Rosa got it done by 29-28 decision. So good for her. She's moving up the bantamweight, or this was at featherweight, but she'll be moving up the rankings and maybe get a top 10 opponent. Probably I think it could get maybe an Irene Aldana maybe. And just on that note as well, I'm gonna just talk about Guram take more time off as he always does. He takes a year off in between fights. Elves Brenner needs to heal up that cut, but he could fight in on the Brazil card maybe. He took a bit of damage in that fight, action packed. I could see him fighting on the Brazil card. I don't mind like a guy just outside the rankings. I'll say maybe if Demir's still fighting, he obviously lost on this card. If Demir wants to stick around, I don't mind an Elves Brenner versus Demir Ismagulov matchup since Demir beat Guram. So I don't mind that at all. But and then for Alexander Romanov, I guess you could do a Jairzinho Rosenstrike, who's coming off a loss. Blagoy Ivanov should be cut from the sport. But yeah, moving on. Joanderson, Brito versus Weston Wilson. The biggest favourite and the biggest lock of the card got it done. One of this was one of two really confident picks for me that really came through. The other one obviously being Rinat Fakhretdinov. But Joanderson Brito came out, landed some big shots, landed a big overhand in the first, got the finish in the first round as well. Landed a big overhand, got a takedown, got some ground and pound. Weston Wilson had a knee bar attempt, which is in. It was a good knee bar attempt, but Brito just said, "Fuck you, I'm not tapping," and just started smashing him in the face. And that's one way to get out of submission, I guess, is just punch them in the face, and if they let go, then you're good. If they don't let go, then they get knocked out, and that's exactly what happened. Weston Wilson had to bail on the knee bar attempt, and then ended up just getting ground and pounded out and lost the fight by first round TKO. Brito had a moment on the mic afterwards, got very angry and called out Dan Ige. Don't know what his issue is with Dan Ige, but you can make that matchup. Weston Wilson was making his debut, got kind of rushed in on short notice. He'll go out and fight someone else way down the rankings. He's got to really figure out where he's at because Joanderson Brito was clearly way too much for him. But good job for Brito. Got a big finish. First round KO. That's 3-0 for him, I believe. And a good win for him. So he can fight Dan Ige. I don't mind that at all. You can do that maybe September. But I could see that maybe on the Mexico card, perhaps. Sometime September, October, maybe. Could if you really want to wait that long, you could do November. But he didn't take much damage, so I think turn him back around quickly. And do that Dan Ige matchup since he's called him out. Moving on though to the headliner of the prelims, Kevin Lee versus Rinat Fakhretdinov. Um, Rinat Fakhretdinov won in under a minute. He won in 55 seconds was the official time for this matchup. Both came out. Rinat was just landing better shots on the feet initially. They were feeling each other out. Nothing much happening, and then bam, Rinat lands a massive right hand. Looks like he KO'd Kevin Lee, but Kevin Lee recovered. Jumped forward into a shot for a takedown, but got guillotined and got put unconscious. It was a bit of a weird one. Kevin Lee's arms were around the neck of, around the body of Rinat Fakhretdinov. And he was in a guillotine, and his arms were like pinned there, so he couldn't tap. He probably wasn't trying to tap anyway, but He couldn't tap, so his arms were pinned, and Herb Dean took longer than he probably needed to because he was trying to pull his arm and check and see if he was all right. But his arms couldn't move, so he was clearly out. There was an in guillotine, and Rinat's done it in under a minute. I heard a lot of people. I heard want to give a spotlight to this Lucas Tracy MMA. If you don't know him on YouTube, decent sized YouTuber, bigger than me, obviously. Um, but he in his prediction said that Rinat Fakhretdinov was the biggest fraud in MMA and that Kevin Lee was going to KO him. Um, I don't know how. I think he's got this weird thing of wanting to make one really strange pick that no one agrees with each card because that was just an odd pick. But he picked Kevin Lee by knockout and said Rinat Fakhretdinov was a fraud and a boring lay and pray grappler. And he went out in there and pretty much starched Kevin Lee in a minute and then subbed him. So there was no lay-in pro grappling from Rinat Fakhretdinov in this matchup. One took no damage, turned him back around immediately. I would say it's unlikely, but I did hear I don't mind the idea of Rinat Fakhretdinov versus Jack Della Maddalena. Since Sean Brady pulled out, I don't mind that matchup being made. I'd prefer a few other ones over that. But if he's not going to fight there, then he took zero damage, turned him back around August, September. If they can't get a highly ranked fight to take the place of Henry Cejudo versus Chito Vera on that August card in Boston, do you can do Rinat Fakhretdinov versus someone just outside the rankings or maybe ranked. I don't mind. You could do a Neil Magny if you really wanted to go and get him to the rankings straight away. Could do a Nicholas Delby perhaps. Just another fighter, but he looks really good and he should definitely be ranked by the end of the year. So very impressive from him. Took no damage, turning back around in a few months. Main card opener though. We've got Bruno Fereira versus Nursulton Ruziboev. I picked Bruno Fereira in this matchup. I picked him to chin Ruziboev and KO him in the first round. But it was Nursulton Ruziboev that got the first round KO. I was dead wrong in this prediction. I said if Ruziboev won, it was going to be a quick submission by catching him in the guillotine. And that's not what happened. He caught him off balance when the start of the fight just kind of Ruziboev landing some good leg kicks. Ferrer was just kind of feeling him out, trying to gauge the range, trying to come in with a big shot. But then Ferrer threw a big leg kick, or a big body kick. It was up on one leg and got slightly dropped, slightly just knocked off balance, kind of like Volkanovski with Ortega when he got dropped into that guillotine. It wasn't like a clean knockdown, but he was off balance. But I think what happened was the impact of Bruno Ferreira's head hitting the mat or hitting the canvas is actually what injured him or what knocked him out. And then he just got ground and pounded out. 1 minute 17 seconds. There were some really quick finishes on this card as well. I'm just going to go back to the prelims briefly. Minute 17, Rinat Fakhretdinov in 55 seconds, Joanderson Brito in 2 minutes 54 seconds. Like some really quick finishes on this card. The next fight after this, Benoit St. Denis won in 4 minutes 48 seconds. So a few first round KOs on this card. It was very interesting to see, very fun to see. But then we had to sit through ads, so that wasn't the best. But the finishes were very impressive in this on this card. Nursulton Ruziboev got himself a performance bonus, well deserved. I think a few more should have been handed out, if I'm being honest. There were some really exciting finishes, and only two of them got handed performance bonuses. But Ruziboev, ground and pounded him out. I'll just see the stats. Not too many strikes landed. 6 strikes for Ruziboev, 3 for Ferreira. As I said, minute in, so there's not much to go over. Just big shot. Very good from him. I don't mind the idea of him versus like a could do GM3, could do a Gerald Meerschaert matchup, just the classic prospect tester, maybe like a Gregory Rodriguez or something, a Bruno Silva perhaps, just any of those kind of matchups from like that 20 to 30 ranked in the middleweight division. But a very impressive performance from Nursulton Ruziboev. Bruno Ferreira, big KO loss, turned back around in Brazil. I feel like that's enough time for him. Not like he wasn't slept out cold, but he was dropped and hammer fisted out badly. So take some time off, return in Brazil, get in the home crowd, and hopefully get another knockout like he did against Gregory Rodriguez. But moving on, Ismael Bonfim versus Benoit St. Denis. Ismael Bonfim came into this fight as the prospect, as the big favourite, as the lightweight hopeful that everyone thought was going to make the rankings, and he looked really good, coming off a big KO win over Terence McKinney. But in this fight, he just got shut down. Benoit St. Denis came out early, landing some big body kicks, hammering away at the body of Bonfim. Bonfim was kind of beckoning him on, but didn't wasn't doing anything about it. It's like he's never defended a body kick in his life. There was some grappling. Benoit Denis got two takedowns. Pushed the grappling a little bit, took him down, got the back, and fought hands on the back a bit, got the hooks in, and then eventually got a rear naked choke sort of face squeeze very late in the round with 12 seconds to go in the first round. So very impressive from him. He should definitely be turning around on that France card in Paris. He called out top 10 ranked guys. He probably won't get those. I reckon him versus Matt Frivola would be an exciting matchup to see next. As for Bonfim as well, Brazil card. That's the kind of thing you're going to get all these guys on the Brazil card. It's in November, so that's kind of when the timeline of him coming back is. Didn't get knocked out, unlike Bruno Fereira, so he should be okay to fight in Brazil. And regardless of Gabriel Bonfim's performance in a month, you should get him on that Brazil card too. Get the brothers fighting on the same card would be good to see. But yeah, not too much else to talk about in that matchup. Bonfim landed some decent shots, landed 15 strikes. Benoit Denis landed some good ground and pounds as well. 35 total strikes, only 14 significant. But yeah, still got the sub. Impressive win. Moving on. Ariane Lipski versus Melissa Gatto. Very boring fight. Not much happened. A few better shots. Melissa Gatto won the second round. Ariane Lipski won the first. I thought Melissa Gatto won the third as well. Sorry, my bad. Ariane Lipski won the third. Melissa Gatto won the second, and I thought she won the first. But one of the judges gave it 2-1 to Lipski. One of them gave it 3-0 to Lipski, which was a bit crazy to see. And then one of them obviously gave it 2-1 to Gatto. It was a split decision for Lipski. Not an entertaining fight. Not one I'll ever be rewatching. But yeah, Lipski got it done. Landed 66 significant strikes. Gatto landed 85. One takedown for Lipski, but Gatto got straight back up afterwards. Not an action-packed fight. Not going to call it a robbery. I personally thought Gatto won. A few people did as well. I think the general consensus is that 3-0 scorecard for Lipski was not a good one. And of course, you want to know who it was that gave it 3-0 for Lipski? It was Sal D'Amato. Big Sal causing some mayhem again, causing some questionable scorecards. And then Chris Lee scored it 2-1 for Lipski. So those two handing out some more questionable scorecards. Not a robbery though, just boring kind of fight, hard to score, not much damage landed. I just thought I just thought Gatto did a little bit more in the first round. That she should have got that. She swelled up the eye of Lipski, gave her a bit of a black eye as well. So visible damage, I think, gives it to her because there was nothing really big or significant that got landed in that fight. But anyway, boring fight. Moving on though to Max Griffin versus Michael Morales. Michael Morales won a unanimous decision, 2-1 across all three judges' scorecards. An impressive performance from him. Battled some adversity in the first round, got his eye swelled up, lost that first round on all three scorecards, was having some trouble, didn't look too good, but he came back in the second and third. In the second round, did really well, rocked Griffin a few times, landed a flying knee, landed some big right hands, was pressuring him. So he won that second round. Similar thing in the third, just landed the big shots. Clearly had the power advantage and the speed advantage. Griffin just had that kind of veteran savviness going for him, but it wasn't enough in this matchup. 36-72, so double the significant strikes for Morales. Had a takedown, defended all 8 of Max Griffin's takedown attempts. That was a big thing in this matchup. Michael Morales showed some really impressive takedown defense to stay up on the feet. I think he might have got briefly taken down for a second, but it didn't count because he got straight back up. But yeah, impressive performance for Michael Morales. He didn't get exposed, but he got showed to definitely not be at that top 15 level or top 20 level as of right now. He needs a few steps up. I like the idea. I'll say this one. Santiago Ponzinibbio in Mexico, or not in Mexico, on that September 16th card on Mexican Independence Day. Obviously, neither of them are Mexican, but we've got an Argentinian and an Ecuadorian. South American Latino, get them on that September 16th card. There's some good fighters on there. Got Anthony Hernandez, Kelvin Gastelum, Alexa Grasso, Lupi Godinez. So that's a good matchup on that. And a good, obviously, Ponzinibbio coming off the loss to Holland. Morales coming off a few wins, needs a step up in competition. I think Ponzinibbio is the guy. So an impressive win for Michael Morales. Looked good for most of the fight. First round was a bit of concern. I was like, fuck's sake, am I about to get another pick wrong? But he came back, landed the big shots in the second and third, and did enough to win. But moving on, though, it's a good win for Miles. Moving on to the co-main event. Damir Ismagulov versus Grant Dawson. Grant Dawson won a clear, dominant 30-27, 30-26 on one scorecard decision. Very impressive from him. His most impressive performance to date. Showed out really well in this matchup. Got the takedowns. Had 12 minutes of ground control time in a 15-minute fight, and about 10 of those 12 minutes were back control. So really impressive performance from Grant Dawson. I picked Damir to win. I kind of overlooked how I overlooked Demir's grappling weaknesses that he's shown in the past against Arman Tsarukyan, and I was like, yeah, Grant Dawson's not the level of Arman Tsarukyan, which I don't think he is, but he did better in the grappling than Arman against Damir. Just took him down easily. 3 of 5 of the takedown attempts had a submission attempt in there. Not too much strikes landed in of the significant variety. 13 for Damir, 30 for Dawson. So it wasn't the strikes that got him this win. It was the 12 minutes of ground control time, which was crazy to see. Just got the hooks in, got the takedown. Damir really couldn't do anything. And then just got the back and held on to it. Damir couldn't escape the body triangle, and it was a dominant performance from Grant Dawson. Very impressive from him. Unfortunately, it didn't get picked right. I looked at his record and I was like, he's got a draw with Ricky Glenn where he got 10-8'd in the third round. Ricky Glenn looked horrible in his last fight. Looked like a senior citizen and got KO'd by Christos Giagos. So it's like, there's no way. I'm like, the Mike Madsen win was good. But I'm like, there's no way that he's had takedowns defended by unranked guys. I'm like, Damir will be good enough. But I should have kind of thought, and I did kind of think this as well, but it wasn't enough to sway me, was that Damir Ismagulov kind of retired after the Arman Tsarukyan fight and then kind of came back slightly. But like, I just should have questioned his motivation for this matchup, and he's clearly not he's clearly not in that top 10 level, and he's clearly got one or less matchups. He's on the way out now, Damir. Not an impressive performance from him. Couldn't stuff the takedowns. Didn't know how to get out of back control, and just got dominated by Grant Dawson, who called out. I forget who he called out. I think he called out Beneil Dariush and Tony Ferguson. He said, I either want to fight a big name or a big ranking. I either want to fight for a big name or a big ranking. He said, I'll fight Tony Ferguson because he's a big name, or I'll fight Beneil Dariush because he's a high-ranked opponent. So I don't think he'll get a Beneil Dariush. I can see him getting the winner or the loser of Turner versus Hooker coming up this weekend, which I think is going to be Dan Hooker. But that's not even much of a jump up the rankings for him. Let me just check the official UFC rankings. I'm pretty sure Dan Hooker's ranked number 11, and Dawson now is going to be ranked number 12. So there's not much point to making that fight. Let me just check. Yeah, right now, Dan Hooker's ranked number 11. Damir was ranked number 12. So Dawson's going to go to number 12. So there's not much point in making that fight. I could see like Gamrot maybe. Oh, actually, no, he didn't say. He said he didn't want Gamrot. He trains with him. I don't know. So he'll fight someone. Could maybe Jalen Turner if he wins regardless because he's ranked number 10. But I feel like they usually like to give the winning fighters a jump up in competition. And I think if Jalen Turner wins, he'll be looking at like a Fiziev or something like that. But yeah, I think you make Gamrot versus Fiziev, and then the loser of that fight can fight Grant Dawson later in the year. I think that's the fight to make. And then Damir, if he's not going to retire, I think do Elves Brenner. As I said before, I think that's the fight to make there. Maybe do a Saint Denis and then do Brenner versus Frivola. You can kind of switch those two around. But I think the storyline to really see how good Brenner is, fight Damir. Damir fought Guram. Damir beat Guram. So if he beats Guram and beats Damir, then he's really legit and he's a top 15 guy. So I like the idea of that matchup. But moving on though to the main event of the evening, Sean Strickland versus Abasipian Magomedov. Abbas Magomedov versus Sean Strickland was the main event here. And Sean Strickland's got a TKO or KO inside 2 rounds. KO'd Abbas in the second round. Had some adversity in the first round. Abbas came out landing some good leg kicks, some good teeps, good body kicks. The range was really the difference in this matchup. The range was the determiner of this matchup and who won, because in the first round, when Abbas was fresh and he had the range down and he was landing good teeps, good leg kicks, good body kicks, landing a few head kicks as well, he was giving Sean trouble, and Sean wasn't landing too much. He was landing a decent jab, hurting the nose of Abbas a little bit. But Abbas really had his way in the first round, landing big body kicks, I'll just check the strike numbers. By the end of the fight, Sean Strickland had landed 81 strikes, but most of those had been in the second round. Abbas landed 47 overall. He got a takedown. Sean got right back up. I'm just going to check real quick. But yeah, very impressive from Abbas in the first round. But he got really forward checked and got cardio exposed, just like Guram. He's got a real cardio issue. Um, and it got exposed here. After the first round, he came out and was just gassed, and then Sean Strickland just used him as a fucking punching bag and was just laying significant strikes on him, and it really wasn't good to watch. I'm just gonna take a quick look at this at the stats here, if I can. No, not the scorecards, but yeah, like first round eye poke as well. So I forgot to mention that in the opening 30 seconds, Abbas eye poked Sean Strickland badly. I thought briefly that it might have ended up stopping the fight. Luckily, it didn't. Sean continued. He said after the fight in the post-fight interview, which I just watched, that he was still seeing double vision at that time. So really bad eye poke it was. Lucky he continued because that would have been horrible if a horrible way to end the card with a main event ending in a no contest. But round one. Abbas landed 32 strikes, very impressive of him. Landed 44 to the head, 34% to the body, 21% to the legs. So mixing it up very well. Sean Strickland landed 98% to the head, 1% to the body, and I'm pretty sure that was like one punch. Sean Strickland was just teeing off on the face of Abbas Magomedov, using him as a punching bag. Landed 70 strikes in round two. If somehow Abbas had made it to the end of round two, that would have been like a standing 10-8. But yeah, very impressive. Abbas Magomedov landed 47 strikes at distance, 0 strikes in the clinch. It was the distance. That's what I'm saying. I'll talk about this for a little bit here. As I said, first round, when Abbas had the kicking range, when he was at long range, he did really well. Strickland was landing the jab, but that was about it. He couldn't get that cross going. He couldn't really get anything else going, the body shots or anything like that. Wasn't pressuring Abbas as effectively when Abbas was able to push him back with the kicks. But as soon as that second round started, and I heard Chris Curtis in the corner, I don't know exactly what he said, but he was calling for an opening. He said that there was an opening there for something, and I imagine it was the boxing, and I imagine it was the cross behind the jab. Because right now in round one, Strickland had only been landing the jab, and then as soon as round two opened, came out double jab cross immediately, and it landed. The double jab and the cross both landed. On the face of Abbas Magomedov, and that I think that's what Chris Curtis was calling for. And then after that, Sean Strickland just put so much pressure on him, walked him down. And when you're walking a kicker down, when you're walking a guy who likes to use his long, rangy, powerful kicks and leg kicks, it's harder to throw effective kicks off the back foot. That's a pretty well-known thing in the striking game. Guys, when you're walking back and pushing back against the cage, you can't throw the kicks that you want. You've got to defend and stuff. And Abbas was getting really flustered, trying to just block up, or running away from Strickland almost, which was crazy to see. And Sean was just putting the 1-2 on him all night. He was standing in the pocket with him. And the amount of sparring, I said this going into it, the amount of sparring that Sean Strickland does, his ability to just land shots when you're in that close combat, just using this kind of like in the pocket, like this kind of Philly shell style that he has, like this like weird like Philly shell style that he's kind of brought into MMA, which is a very uncommon thing. It works very effectively when he's in close range. And in that whole second round, I'm 90% sure all of those strikes from Sean Strickland were landed within like a meter. Like they were like no more than a meter away from each other. And Strickland was just popping him the whole time. Yeah, Sean Strickland, 82% of his strikes landed from distance, 0 in the clinch. I think from distance they mean literally anything that isn't in the clinch, so that's not as accurate. I would have liked to see like actual really range strikes. Um, Abbas did get a takedown in the first round. Briefly mentioned that. Got one hook in on the back, had a little brief choke attempt, but Strickland got back up, survived it. And yeah, again, just put the leather on him in the second round. Abbas was gassed. He said afterwards, like Sean's like, "That is that it? You're fucking quitting already?" Just yeah, Abbas, big shot. He kind of ran away from Strickland, and he walked. He was like starting to walk away. He was taking big, heavy breaths. He was starting to walk away from Sean Strickland. Walking away from Sean Strickland, and he got caught with a big shot as he was walking away and got put down. and ground and pounded out. Bit of a late stoppage, but I'm not going to complain. Sean Strickland was just hammering him away on the ground. Um, Abbas was just guarding up, not fighting back, and the fight was stopped for it. So really impressive win from Sean Strickland, and the UFC really learned a lesson here to not push those prospects as hard. Um, Clearly, Abbas in the first round, I think he's like top 15 caliber. Abbas when he's fresh and he's not tired and he's at distance. Abbas when he's fighting his fight, he's like a top 10, top 15 fighter in the UFC. Um, but like Abbas in the first round was giving Strickland more trouble than Ivanov was at any point in the fight. But it's just once that first round ended, it's like Abbas lost all hope of getting a finish and just got absolutely put the heat on him and just dominated. Um, Really had nothing for him in the second round. Sean, I was like, be careful, Sean. What are you doing? He's getting in way too close, but then he knows what he's doing in close, just landing big shots. Um, Really impressive to see from him. And yeah, got the second round finish, had a nice moment on the mic, called for the title shot, said he wants to fight the first Chinese champion. He's talking about Izzy, obviously, having a joke there. And I think I think make it happen. I think as long as Dricus doesn't like KO Rob in the first round and take no damage, which I don't think is going to happen, I think do Strickland versus Izzy in Australia. The press conference for that is going to be amazing. The build up is going to be absolutely crazy. I love that Strickland could honestly get in the head of Adesanya in that fight. Like, if you look at that matchup on paper, there's really no chance for Strickland to win. Izzy's just better everywhere. He's better technically, got more power, all of the above. But I'll just say, if Strickland can like talk Izzy in the press conference and bait him into just a boxing match slugfest in the pocket, then I could see Strickland having some success. I still think Izzy's going to win. I just don't think there's anywhere that Strickland really has a lot of success. He's not the most powerful guy. He got this TKO due to Abbas's exhaustion and just volume. It's not like he put him out with one shot. Um, but yeah, as much as I would want Strickland to win, because I think it would just be hilarious, I do think Izzy would easily win that matchup. But I still think make it happen just for the press conference. Because Robert Whittaker trilogy, if he absolutely goes out there and dominates Dricus du Plessis, schools him and leaves Dricus to have no moments in that fight, then sure, you can do Robert Whittaker versus Izzy number 3 when Izzy's won the first 2 fights. Like, it's still a fight that people want to see, and it's going to be more competitive than Strickland. It's going to be more competitive than Dricus du Plessis against Israel Adesanya. But regardless, I still just think it doesn't matter how competitive it is. It's like Max Holloway would be the most competitive fight for Volkanovski probably. Apart from maybe Yair and Topuria, Max Holloway would be the most competitive fight 10 times out of 10 for Volkanovski. But you just can't keep fighting the most competitive fight if you've already beat him. Like, you got to keep fighting new guys, and sometimes those new guys aren't going to be as good, but they are going to be new challenges. So I do think that Strickland versus Izzy is the fight to make if Dricus does not KO Robert Whittaker in a round, which I don't think is going to happen, but it might. And I think that matchup is a bigger, more like marketable fight in another market. I think you take that fight to Africa. I think when you do Dricus versus Izzy, you take that fight to Africa. I think if Dricus beats Rob, and he takes a bit of damage and stuff, like if he goes in a brawl and gets like a TKO in the third or something and takes a bunch of damage, don't turn around in 2 months because there's just no point. You're not going to get the best version of Dricus and you're not going to get like a real proper build up and stuff. But you do that in Africa and that sells tickets, that sells pay-per-views, and that draws a lot more interest than Izzy versus Dricus in Australia, where Izzy's just gonna like have the support of the guys behind him, and Dricus is gonna really have nothing, and it's just gonna look like a kind of weird fight to be made. But I think you do Strickland or you do Rob, one of those two. If Rob wins, but I think yeah, save Dricus. Think he can, yeah, he can wait out for a little bit. Just do an Africa card at like the start of next year if Izzy's still champ. But I just think do Strickland for the Australia card because again, it's a thing that we've seen it like a lot of the time they give fighters in their when they're fighting in their home like kind of home country, home fans, they give them a more favorable matchup. And that's Izzy. Strickland is a much more favorable matchup for Izzy. Um, to go out there, have a good showing, and just get some support from the fans. But I still think to make it happen, I just want the build up and the press conference to that fight would be amazing to watch. But yeah, anyway, that is the card done, guys. It was a really good card. On picks, I went 6-6. I got Bonfim, Guram, um, Petrovic, um, Gatto, Fereira and Demir wrong. I got those 6 wrong, and then I got the other 6 right. So very average night on picks. I fucking pick flipped from Lipski to Gatto again. Failed. Next time I think I'm gonna do a pick flip. I'm just not going to because clearly it doesn't work out for me. But yeah, 6-6 on the card, very average, but a lot of upsets. Like no one expected Guram to lose. Not many people expected Bonfim to lose. The two women's fights were like women's fights. They're 50-50. I pick flipped one of them. Demir was like the one. Demir was the only. Demir and Ferreira were the two picks on that card that were like genuinely 50-50 fights, and I just had the wrong call. Um, like I picked Petrovic just based off the fact that she was like meant to be a prospect. Didn't even know much about her. And I just thought Luana Carolina was bad. But I did like no research into that fight. I really had no care about it. Lipski versus Gatto, who cares? Like I picked Lipski, changed, cost me, but like it doesn't really matter that much. But yeah, Demir was the main one that I read incorrectly. Like that was the fight that I really got wrong, and I saw the wrong thing heading into that. I thought Grant Dawson could only like do well against just cans. I thought Demir was just a different level of fighter, different level on the feet, different level of grappler, and I was completely wrong. And then the other one, Ferreira versus Ruziboev, I was pretty wrong. I wasn't 100% wrong because I knew Ruziboev was like probably honestly had a better chance to win, but I just like my prediction was just like, I think Ferreira's just going to catch him, which is like I'm saying this guy's better, but I just have a feeling this guy's going to catch him with a big shot. And I was wrong. Rizabov caught Ferreira with a big shot and put him out. But that's the game. 6 out of 6, not terrible. Strickland saved me on the main card, got me to 6-6. Otherwise, I would have been 5-7. But anyway, guys, that's the video. I'll see you guys next time for the UFC 290 picks. See you guys.